Ladies and gentlemen, cutting-edge technology and data analytics are transforming risk management, supply chain security, and national resilience in an increasingly interconnected and contested world. Here to discuss these matters is Brandon Daniels, Chief Executive Officer at Exiger.
Hi. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. So, as the video was talking about at the very beginning, we're at a reckoning moment. We're at a moment in time where the world is changing and adapting faster than most can manage. We're at a reckoning moment where we have to make a determination as a country, as a world, as to how we're going to solve the major challenges that we have in front of us to revolutionize the way that we manage our global commerce, our global industry, our global economy. When I think about how the West can win this battle, how we can win the future when it comes to either national security or economic security, it comes down to one critical point. It's leveraging the innovation that we have as a country at every single level of the supply chain. Now, what do I mean by this? In the United States, in America, what's the one thing that we've had that's differentiated us throughout our existence? It's the ability for one person to move and change the entire world. When we think about penicillin and its introduction just at the beginning of a mass explosion of bacterial infections, when we think about the light bulb and it coming just as we saw huge issues as places where people live started to scale and grow, we saw huge issues related to fires that were caused by our lighting structure. As we saw whale blubber oil start to increase in price, a Canadian geologist discovered kerosene and changed the way we were thinking about the future of heating, of cooling, of the entire energy infrastructure. That ability, that single and critical ability to change our entire world with one person, whether it's sending rockets into space or a few kids in a garage, creating the personal computer, that ability is something we need to adapt and adopt at every level of the supply chain. Because the world has become outsourced. How many of you are completely in control of every component of the things that you utilize to deliver to customers or to deliver to your employees? How many of you are completely in control of the systems that you run? When you think about the supply chains that support us, they are our ability to deliver. They are our infrastructure. They are our employees. They are our scale. 90% of the cost of manufacturing a car are the suppliers and the parts and the components and services that are purchased and not manufactured on the floor of the car manufacturers themselves. 90%. Think about software development and AI development. How much of that is happening in the cloud and not on your own infrastructure anymore? Our supply chains are our lifeblood. They are our systems. And when we think about those supply chains, they've become increasingly brittle. Now, why have they become brittle? The first reason is we've had globalization. And then the second reason is we've had deep de-verticalization. So while the world, and particularly the West, United States and our allies, have essentially specialized and de-verticalized, and then globalized with just-in-time delivery, China has entrenched and verticalized their entire supply chains, made them very rigid. You have literally mills next to casting and forging, next to capabilities that can build weapon systems, next to prime contractors. You have that entire workforce, that entire capability built next to one another, built for scale. But don't be fooled. Don't be fooled by the mediocrity of scale. Because what happens in a very rigid system At the same time that it is rigid, it is definitionally brittle. And what can we do? What can we do to combat this mediocrity of scale? We can turn innovation and constant iteration into our scale. Think about the critical minerals issues that we've had over the last few years. Shortages, problems in manufacturing and processing critical minerals, alloys, the constant disintegration of our steel industry, of our alloy industries, has left us wanting. And at the same time, as the economic and trade warfare that we've seen ratcheting up between us and China has reached a fever pitch, we have to respond to the continuous weaponization of our periodic table. Now, how can we adapt? Well, we can take that American ingenuity, we can take that skunk works capability into critical minerals. Last August, China put export control bans on gallium, germanium, and antimony. Does anyone here know that our entire germanium output, which is required for our fiber optic lines and for our semiconductors, our most advanced semiconductors, the germanium that we need for that could actually be produced by coal ash leaching and zinc smelting residue right here in the United States? The DOE is running pilots as we speak that could meet our entire annual requirement for the future for semiconductors and fiber optics. If we think about every single level of the supply chain as an application connected with APIs and just adopt at every level a new level of innovation, a new level of speed, and take that to scale, we can then replace all of that germanium capacity in the next 2-3 years. So that's just the first level. The second level is we start to look upstream. So we've been monitoring weapon systems. Exiger is the most advanced technology for mapping supply chains and finding risk within them and helping you to redesign them to reduce cost, increase and accelerate performance, and to find and mitigate and manage risk, right? So as we've been monitoring systems, over the past just 4 months, we've had critical capabilities in casting and forging, in critical components manufacturing. We've had capabilities literally wiped off the face of the earth. There are only 3 magnesium casting companies in the United States. And one of them, our major supplier, their entire inventory and their manufacturing capacity burnt down a month ago. One of the major suppliers to every single one of our critical weapons systems, the ones that are running around Ukraine right now. One of the major manufacturers, component manufacturers, does cadmium plating, does passivated finishes, builds the really tough stuff, the stuff that in an engine vibrates or has heat. That vendor's entire manufacturing capability in Jenkintown, Pennsylvania just burnt down. And then one of our other critical steel manufacturers, the ones that create the steel that's necessary for our airframes, for our Navy shipbuilding that we're all about to put money into, their entire production line's about to idle in June. And so what are we doing to solve this? Well, of course we have to invest in industrial base expansion, but how do we not get caught in status quo? How do we not copy China? How do we look towards the future? Well, how do we do that? We invest in capabilities like Divergent. And I'm not a Divergent sales rep. I have nothing to do with them, but I've just seen the capabilities. It's incredible. We invest in capabilities that can print the future. I was in Ukraine a couple of years ago, and I was visiting Kyiv and the front lines with a congressional delegation. And one of the little mantras I heard is print or die. We deployed capabilities to print everything from turret fasteners to brackets in theater in minutes or hours instead of waiting for months-long procurements. Russia has been targeting our capabilities based upon how long they take to sustain and procure. Think about that. They've unwrapped our supply chains and they've identified where we are weakest. Now, how do we combat that? We move to a more adaptive manufacturing infrastructure. And this isn't, some distant dream. This is right now. We can print everything from a cog up to a car. And of course, at the very top end, there's defense innovation. And then there's companies like Anduril that are doing incredible things in terms of repackaging and turning lethality into a COTS item. You have companies like Exiger that are building out incredible supply chain visibility, so you can manage that other 90% of your infrastructure that you don't own. You don't have those systems. You don't have those databases. You don't have those employees. You don't have that manufacturing floor. You've got companies like Palantir that are helping us to reorganize the way that we manage individual inventory and get signal and demand from the front lines. You've got companies like OpenAI and Google that are revolutionizing the way that we can communicate with one another and send communications at speed and scale. At that top end, we can continuously innovate. And then what does that continuous innovation lead to? What does that continuous innovation allow us to do? It allows us to get massive scale, massive innovative uplift, and to break that brittle system that we're fighting for not just economic security, not just national security, but the future of global democracy. We have the ability to do this. I've seen it live. Exiger's technology was deployed in the COVID-19 response. When it mattered most, we were able to engage and build with industry new production lines in a matter of weeks, turning car manufacturers into ventilator manufacturers. We saw the ability for us to iterate, for us to reoperate. We have customers that are redesigning drone airframes in 48 hours using AI, and then using our technology, building a digital twin of it, and determining whether or not there's an industrial base that can actually support it. That kind of rapid innovation exists today, and it can drive the future and tomorrow. Because our next war will not be a war based on industrial scale. It'll be based on industrial innovation. It'll be a war that we fight with the incredible technological differentiation. Because when you see a drone swarm of 1 million drones coming over the horizon, picking apart tanks, taking down howitzers, and us unable to sustain the capabilities, we're going to be left in a similar position to what we were left in the COVID-19 response. Because at the same time we were doing all of this adaptive work, we were figuring out, we had the L3 Harris ventilator, we had the Milano ventilator, we had all of these really smart and incredible people innovating on a dime. A week into the Joint Acquisition Task Force, which was the White House task force that was responsible for the COVID-19 response, procurement, and acceleration, we were asked, can we ramp ventilators more? Can we get more to the healthcare front lines? And we were tasked with mapping the entire ventilator supply chain within 2 days, which we did. And then I had to go brief then Undersecretary, the Honorable Ellen Lord, on what it was we had found and whether or not we could ramp ventilators. And it was on a Friday. I remember this really clearly. And the team had come back to me that day and had said, hey, there's an abundance of all of these capabilities except for one. And unfortunately, it's one that's really important. It's the solenoid valve that goes into the ventilator. And there's only one company in the world that makes this one solenoid valve that has been distributed to all of these companies to manufacture as an adaptive process. And they said, the unfortunate part is we called the CEO, which you could do in COVID. No, everybody was at home, but we called the CEO. And he said, unless I've got a 10-year contract for a lot more solenoid valves. I'm not ramping up anything. And if you haven't watched the news, I'm in Italy. We're not going anywhere. We're not doing anything. You've got what you've got. And I think we can win. And I don't think we have to deliver that same message to the warfighter in the future. And so I call on all of you to not have that same call happen with a warfighter on a front line in Taiwan in 5 years. I call on all of you to harness the one thing that makes us truly great: innovation at every level, and innovation at every level of our supply chain and of our teams, because just one person can make the difference with AI and automation. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.